Can you hear me? All right. Thank you guys so much for such a great adventure. It doesn't look like we're all here yet, but that's okay. So does anybody have any questions? You want to give them a little storyline? The microphones aren't working, so I'm sitting here with this. Do you have your little microphone on? And let's talk a little bit about the. Oh, I can use that. Climate change on a grassroots level, eating whole foods, mostly plants, less packaging, from a farmer you know, does a lot to reduce our carbon footprint.
And I just wanted to make one point, maybe not from there, but all those little nuts with sustainability are really important nuts, but if we don't crack the big nuts,
Somebody of a different religion with a headscarf asked Kristen about whether we use hybrid or GMO or conventional seed. And Kristen was like, well, I got to make this answer respectful. And she goes, well, we use hybrid seed. And you're going to act this out. Because we grow, like, for instance, we grow storage number for cabbage.
I'm going to go ahead and do this, but this is actually not how we came up with this skit. Okay?
It might be part of it.
I'm going to go ahead and do it. So I was speaking to a pretty big audience, and she said, do you use hybrid seed or do you say seed? And I said, we use hybrid seed, and here's why. And I was trying to, she looked to me like she was conservative, so I was trying to control my language and be respectful. And I said, for example, we grow a hybrid variety of cabbage. And I said, when we switched to the hybrid variety of cabbage, we started growing bodacious, juicy balls of cabbage.
And you got to know that she didn't do it like that. She actually got down on her haunches like this and was like, balls of cabbage. And those of us that watched her do that, knowing Kristen is somewhat shy and not likely to speak like that, was crazy. And then let's fast forward now to this week when we spoke at Babson College. And at the keynote, Kristen was trying to do something about the elephant in the room, and it came out.
What I was trying to say, which is what I was trying to say outside too, which didn't quite cross, but I think of sustainability as this giant
not the elephant's testicle.
The way it came out, it sounded like I was talking about elephant nuts.
And I think people were as equally confused as we are in this room today. So Kristen is really leading the kind of intellectual frontier of climate change, which is sort of a testicular carbon relationship. And we figured that was appropriate for today. Other questions? Thank you. That was a perfect question. Yes?
Do you sell fresh vegetables all year?
Do we sell fresh vegetables? So problem one is that all of us in this room think that farmers grow vegetables. I started out thinking I grow vegetables, I'm a farmer. And it's true, vegetable growers are farmers. We grow fresh vegetables all year. In the winter, we do a little greenhouse culture, but we also have huge storage capability, like maybe to the tune of 50 to 60 tons. And so the vegetables we're harvesting now will keep a year in our refrigerated storage. But more than that, we grow what I think is the most important thing to find out what is best for the planet and you, which is we grow fats. So we grow butter, we grow lard, and those are really what we base our diet on. And then after that, we grow proteins. We grow pigs, chickens, beef cows, sheep. And then we grow grains. We grow about 60 acres of corn and wheat, soybeans, rye, occasionally barley and peas. Another question. In the back with the white. Absolutely amazing question. How is the kind of farming we do more or possibly less carbon friendly than, let's say, what ends up in a fast food burger joint? It's a really good question, and we just broke somebody's thesis at Babson because he asked the same question. And the truth is, the science isn't completely out there, but there are many organic farms, and this is terrible to say, but there has been research a little bit, that there are many organic farms that use more carbon than their conventional counterparts. The truth of it is, farming as a whole is 20 to 30% of climate change.
And there are a few things that we know for certain, okay?
Yeah, you want to go technical? We can do the technical list of some of the things that farmers in general and we do practice that do help with carbon sequestration. Hit it.
Okay. One thing that we know we can do is reduce fossil fuel use, right? We can reduce the amount of carbon that's going up. On our farm, we do that. One thing we have is solar panels. So we have a 25 kilowatt solar array that provides about a third of our electricity use. Our farm was based around the idea of using draft horses, which are carbon neutral, in place of tractors. We still have horses on the farm and we still use them, but in the last few years as we've scaled up, we've had to rely more and more on the tractors. The other half of the equation, right? What's not going up is what you're keeping in the ground.
And when we say keeping in the ground, if you grow enough plants over millennia, we talked about this a little bit last year, if you grow plants, they actually are one of the single most important ways to bring carbon out of the air. And if you can keep that in the soil as your organic matter, that brown, black stuff at the top that's so really nutritious for plants, you're actually pulling tons per acre of carbon out of the air.
And after 30 years of knowing that we have a problem, the fact is we are not exactly sure what the relationship between agriculture and carbon is, but here's what we think we know for certain. We think we know for certain. Number one, if you can reduce tillage. Does everybody know what tillage is?
So tillage is breaking the ground so that most of the crops we grow, this wouldn't be for forestry, this wouldn't necessarily be for hay pastures for animals, but for tillage we have to break open the surface of the soil so the plants we eat, which are annuals and require disturbed ecosystems, can grow.
And that's where conventional farmers, some of them have it over the organic guides.
Big time.
Number two, you want to keep the ground covered with plants at all times. We call it cover cropping. That means that we're growing crops that are not meant to be harvested. They're there to put carbon into the soil and to keep the carbon that's in the soil from going up into the air again. Does everybody get that?
And a cash crop could also cover the ground as well as cover crops. And right now, for instance, we just finished planting, give or take, 75 acres of rye in the last 3 months. Some of the rye is already this big, and that's going to grow through the winter. Holds onto the soil so it doesn't erode and makes the soil overall stronger and brings down tons, literally tons of carbon.
Number three, we want an incredibly diverse microbial community in the soil because that makes the carbon in the soil more stable.
Let's do this with a couple volunteers up here just quick so you can see it. So I'm going to be Captain Carbon, and apparently what happened, and we were just reading the science on this, just basically come in and mosh pit me, slam me in the middle. Ugh, exactly. I need a couple. He hit me hard. It's fine. So that they just they didn't need to go quite that hard, but that's fine. Once they've got me, the rest of you can't get at me. So apparently microbial, fungal, bacterial, and viral pathogens, which is what they are, they're definitely pathogens, are actually entrapping carbon. Once they get to me, the rest of you can't get to the carbon. Carbon is what feeds us, right? It's our corn, it's our clothing. carbon is just being crushed here. He's not giving up. It's just fine. He's a microbe that's going to hold this humus forever.
Great.
He's very cute, too.
And
Notice how quickly we release.
and the last one, redirect. The last one is to try to put higher quality plants and animals into the ground in the first place. So we want to be using plants with really long roots, and we want to be keeping that residue, which is carbon, inside the ground.
Other questions? Yes, right there. How many can we support and how many do we support? We'll answer both. We currently have just under 100 families that supply our budget, and we supply them with their year-round food needs. It's about 220, 230 people. Our land capability in the Champlain Valley and lands we directly have access to, we're using 1,000 acres now, roughly. We could probably supply 400 families with about half of their calories. We think that most of the members who buy our food also do some other shopping, and we probably are supplying half of their full diets. Oh, yeah, number 2.
Soil is known to be lacking magnesium, calcium, and phosphorus everywhere. And I was wondering if you guys know what's in your soil and how.
So the question, as you heard, was sort of, are we lacking these calcium and magnesiums? You know, we don't know for sure. We've looked at some of our soil testings. We're not particularly low in calcium because we're on limestone, which is those very same micro little calcareous organisms that settle in the seafloor. Limestone ends up bringing up your pH and providing the calcium for our bones, and that's something that plants take out. So our soils, typically we just give them manure and urine. So when you take a dump today, or you go to, how many people went to the bathroom today?
Redirect.
Okay,
Next question.
Back there.
Can you comment, you grow protein, you said also. So can you comment on the relationship between eating meat and the environment?
Why don't you start?
Okay, I'll take that one. The shortest answer I can give you is that meat is precious in every way. Meat is an animal's life. Meat is also a concentration of resources. So the amount of calories that go into meat is incredible. The amount of labor that goes into meat is incredible. It's possible that pasture-based meats are carbon neutral. It's even possible
Pasture-based, grass-fed,
entirely grass-fed meat is carbon neutral.
which counts out chicken and pork, which typically need grains.
But finding truly 100% grass-fed, grass-finished meat is extremely difficult. And so that's why Mark started off by saying, eat less meat. Use meat in the way that historically it's been used. If you choose to eat meat, use it as a condiment. Use it as flavoring, use it as a treat. We eat meat, we love meat, but we're also extremely aware of how precious it is and what its place is in this whole game of climate change. Does that answer your question?
Question over here.
What was the fire going to be?
What was the fire going to be for? It's really good that you asked. So accidentally some torches went in, and I wasn't even thinking straight about the fact that we could set that screen on fire, which is worth more than I am, apparently. I learned that the hard way. And last year you've heard us talk about, what is petroleum made of? And so I think it's really, I can't remember enough times in life that, like, touch your chair behind you. Everyone just touch your chair. There's some plastic there. There's some foam there. The same is true of petroleum and fuel. That came from pond scum. So all of these plastics that we think have no connection to sort of a living world actually are pond scum and plankton. And it's just fascinating to me that the fuel that I use to light those torches, the fuel we all got here today, are the plants that we're talking about in farming, or slightly different, right? That we're trying to talk about how to get carbon to come down. Well, millions of years ago, it was pond scum that changed the carbon balance. I used to say it was algae, but algae is too complicated. If you're not a biologist, that doesn't mean anything. Pond scum and whale food, plankton, are what became the plastic of your seat. Touch any part of your clothing. It came from plants at some point. Do it. Go ahead. Rub yourself a little. It feels nice. But anything you're wearing, whether it's cotton or synthetic, came from plants. And if it's wool, the animals had to eat the plants. So it's all pond scum and whale food. It's awesome. Another question, if we have any. So I'll repeat the question, and Kristen can take the first crack at it. What are we struggling with on the farm? We started with ourselves. Actually, we started with 2 members. We bought a cow for us, and now we're at 220. How many do we have now? We have 19, 20, 23 in the summer, people that work with us on the farm. What's the biggest challenge for you, Kristen?
I would say trying to always keep that balance of the 3 pillars of sustainability, right? Trying to keep in mind our goal that we want an ecologically, environmentally beneficial farm. We want a socially just farm. And trying to keep those 2 pillars afloat while also being profitable, because every farm is a business, and no farm is sustainable if it loses money every year.
So on the ground, that looks like, do we use tractors or horses, right? So we have these constant existential and practical questions. What are we plowing this field with? It's going to take us 3 weeks to plow it with the horses, and we have unskilled labor that can get hurt, or it can take us 1 day with a tractor.
Sorry, go ahead.
You go.
There's a writer that I really love called Berger, and he wrote a trilogy called Into Their Labors, which is about the transition from peasant agriculture to industrial agriculture in France. It's a beautiful trilogy. I recommend it with my whole heart. But in the introduction, he says, and I'm paraphrasing him here, that farmers are always poised between nostalgia for a past that never existed and hope for a future that never comes. And that's farming in a nutshell, right? We're always propelled forward by the hope that we can do it better. And that's, I think, our biggest challenge every day, is to stay in that wave of belief that we can make it better.
Question here.
Affected by the drought this
Were we affected by the drought? Tremendously. I just looked at our potato storage crops. We've got about 5 tons of potatoes, and often we'll have close to 18 tons was last year's yield. So huge changes in production. Luckily, we produce more than we need. So last year, we were able to wholesale to tons of school districts in the region and to other like Hudson Valley outlets. And this year, we're going to just keep it for our members and probably buy in some potatoes. So the drought hugely affects us. And that's another cool thing about climate change is for us, we actually depend on a more stable climate than we're getting lately. So it's in our self-interest. It's in our economic bottom line for you guys and for us to figure out climate change, because it's really difficult when you can't make hay because it's too wet, or you can't grow potatoes because it's too dry. Other questions?
What advice do you have for students who might want to go in?
Yeah.
Can I start with this one?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start by saying eating delicious farm food is the gateway. So start by eating better tomorrow, right? Go home and we were just at this Babson College event for 3 days. Try to find, even in a corporate food scenario like today, food that makes you feel better. And that's the biggest reward of farming, is what you nourish yourself with in your belly actually gives you the strength to do things. There are tons of other reasons to go into farming.
So if you're serious about thinking about farming, and I think it's a great way to live, I recommend it fully. I saw a lot of the world before I was a farmer, and there's nothing better out there. So I would recommend...
Because it's so hard.
We're
it's
living
so challenging.
in this area right now that's really having an agricultural renaissance. It's really exciting. There's new farms starting up all over the Adirondack Park, inside and outside the park. And I would recommend starting to get your hands dirty in a real and small way. And maybe it'll resonate with you. Maybe it won't, but you'll know immediately. So think about what you're doing this summer. Think about whether that's something that you want to pursue. And then start looking at farms. Farms are always looking for people who are eager to help. So that's what I would recommend. Yes.
We have time for this last question. We'll answer it quickly, and then we're going to get you guys onto your actions. Yep.
Thank you.
That was a very sweet ending. She's proud of us. So give us a hand of applause. Come down and visit the farm. Thank you so much for cracking the giant nut of sustainability with the sledgehammer of cooperation.
Crack that nut. Thanks, everybody.
So let's do the crack that nut. Let's end on a good char. Crack that nut.
Crack that nut. Crack that nut. Crack that nut.
A little louder. Thank you, everybody.
Wonderful. Let's have one more round of applause for Kristen and Mark. Thank you. And now that we have all this energy and excitement, a couple of the summit crew are standing at the exits. If you have not received a evaluation yet for this plenary, please, please, please grab that, fill it out, and put it in the box at admissions. But otherwise, captains, you need to grab a climate action plan on your way out for your school, and you guys can go ahead and get climate action planning. Good luck.